The petrodollar's heyday is over. The biggest oil cartel in the world just fired the opening salvo toward a massive change in the global financial system. The member countries that produce the majority of the world's oil have decided to price oil in XRP rather of dollars, euros, or gold, according to a leaked set of classified OPEC Plus conference documents. Yes, exactly. The cryptocurrency, which was previously the subject of regulatory scrutiny and written off as obsolete by critics, has now been selected as the new standard for the world's most strategically significant commodity. The attention-grabbing element comes next. They estimate that XRP is worth $150,000. Each token is worth $150,000. This official assessment, which is based on oil trade volumes, global liquidity requirements, and a direct challenge to dollar hegemony, is not a speculative estimate. This choice was not made at random. Over the past 10 years, the seeds were sown. Countries have become more and more tired of the political influence of the dollar. For many years, the United States has used its currency as a geopolitical weapon in addition to a means of exchange. Financial surveillance, quick cutoffs, and sanctions are all influenced by the dollar's status as the global settlement medium. The nations of OPEC, many of which have been under pressure from the United States, have been looking for a substitute. The hunt is ended. XRP is their choice. The most recent OPEC Plus summit's leaked minutes indicate that the decision was algorithmic rather than just political. Their oil economists and financial analysts projected a settlement system in which a digital decentralized high-speed token independent of national interest would be necessary for the daily average of over $10 billion in global oil trading. XRP was a good fit. It offers instant global finality, something that fiat and even gold cannot do to its low transaction costs, nearly instantaneous settlement timeframes, and restricted total quantity. That's not all, though. XRP needs to be priced high enough to absorb billions in flows without slippage, arbitrage, or price collapse in order to sustain the liquidity required for daily oil payments. According to reports, their formula determined that a token value of $150,000 is both necessary and ideal. Let's be clear. This has nothing to do with XRP serving as fuel or oil substitutes. It serves as the buyer-seller trust ledger and bridge asset. Under the new approach, a buyer submits a fraction of an XRP that is automatically calculated and settled on the XRPL in lieu of paying $90 in US dollars for a barrel of petroleum. The procedure is instantaneous. It is forever recorded. Exchange rates, middlemen, and sanctions are unnecessary. At this point, the effects begin to accumulate. The elimination of the US dollar eliminates the necessity for OPEC countries to maintain sizable dollar reserves. They are no longer concerned about how US foreign policy, inflation, or interest rates may impact their commerce. According to the document, it is a declaration of financial independence. However, this action is a huge shock to the rest of the globe, particularly to the US. The petrodollar system has maintained a strong demand for US dollars around the world for decades, supported government bonds artificially, and enabled America to incur deficits that would destabilize any other country. Now that oil is valued in XRP, the whole structure starts to sway. The leak continues by outlining OPEC countries' planned infrastructure rollouts. This includes the incorporation of smart contract systems for automatic tanker payments, XRP-based payment terminals at national oil exchanges, and sovereign XRP reserves stored in cold storage throughout the Gulf and Central Asia. Additionally, it describes bilateral agreements with China, India, and Turkey, three major importers, to switch a percentage of their oil purchases into XRP settlements beginning in the upcoming fiscal quarter. The contents of the leak were verified by a Middle Eastern energy analyst with knowledge of the proceedings, who also noted that this is a deliberate departure from the Western financial order. OPEC Plus establishes a supranational trading system with XRP. The $150,000 XRP valuation is based on actual volume, real-world need, and the principles of frictionless trade. It is not market hype. There is no disputing the math. Pricing is just one aspect of it, though. According to the leak, OPEC intends to use smart contracts to link some of its physical reserves, actual barrels of oil that are still underground, to an on-chain representation. To put it another way, oil is tokenized. These reserves will be linked to escrowed XRP through contracts, guaranteeing instantaneous, automatic, and verifiable payment and delivery. Just this invention might save billions of dollars in yearly credit delays, settlement battles, and inconsistencies in logistics, and it directly integrates XRP into the framework of international trade. Imagine what would happen if even 10% or 25% of the world's oil transaction began to settle through this new system based on XRP. There would be an explosive increase in demand for XRP. However, the supply of XRP is limited in contrast to currency. Only 100 billion tokens exist, and many of them are lost or locked. The others? Soon, sovereign trade flows will swallow it. The outcome? Price growth, pressure from demand, and scarcity. If the market starts to take into account the role that XRP currently serves, $150. 000 is structure rather than conjecture. The ramifications now become astounding. The balance of power in the world is being fundamentally rearranged. State-issued currency is giving way to decentralized, utility-driven digital assets as the dominant form of money. There was more to the petrodollar than just oil. It has to do with empire, influence, and leverage. The opposite is the petroxarp, if we may use that term. The field is leveled. It is indifferent to whether you are a microstate or a superpower. You can now access a shared, neutral, borderless monetary layer if you have energy to buy or sell. This is a serious matter for Western institutions. Emergency meetings have been planned to establish a reaction plan, according to people close to the IMF and BIS. Without a single vote or treaty being signed, there is panic that XRP will become a de facto reserve asset. This could lead to a number of negative consequences for the US, including weakened bond markets, dwindling global dollar reserves, and a loss of influence over international commerce. For Europe, this entails reorienting its energy policy around a token that is outside their control. The business that developed the XRPL, Ripple, has, however, kept tactfully mute. Regardless of their involvement, the ledger they created is currently being positioned as the main conduit for international energy commerce. Hardware wallet manufacturers are scrambling to fulfill orders from sovereign clients. Exchanges are reporting huge increases in wallet activations from the Middle East. And rumors have it that certain Gulf states are already providing oil futures denominated in XRP through private OTC platforms. The ramifications may seem far-flung to the typical person, but they aren't. Oil is necessary for every product you purchase, every aircraft you fly, and every house you heat. If XRP is now the conduit for that oil, XRP is then incorporated into each transaction you interact with. That is a macroeconomic fact, not merely an investment thesis. What does that leave you with then? Here's what you should know, but this isn't financial advice. This is your opportunity to witness a financial revolution up close. You are witnessing the next globalization tsunami, the next Nixon shock, or the new Bretton Woods. And it's taking place via digital consensus and decentralized code rather than backroom politics. XRP has evolved beyond a simple cryptocurrency. In the case of oil and possibly everything else, it is now a component of the global settlement layer. Think about this as we close. Even the first oil ship that was paid for using XRP has not yet docked. Everything changes when that moment occurs. The public may never again be able to purchase XRP at the current price. The infrastructure will lock in, the markets will